hello and good morning. We are back in the inky little world of mine, and my name is Kieron Seamons. We're going to be doing some drawing today, so if you want to do some drawing, get your pens and your paper and everything else together, and let's do some drawing. I have no idea what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be a cool one. It's going to be a funky one. If you do want to support the channel in any way, you can go to the top of my YouTube page and you can do a PayPal. You can send some money to support the channel, or you could just send me a comment and say, hey man, how you doing? Okay, let's do some drawing. Right, so let's get into some drawing. Let's get into some ink. It's always good to start some kind of drawing. You know, one of the questions this week, which I should really talk a little bit about, was this fact of artist block. Artist block, I don't really believe it. I don't really think there is such a thing. I think if you really believe that there is such a thing as artist block or something like that, I really do think that what you need to do is you need to kind of explore your drawing more. Get into a little bit more exploration with it, you know, get into a feeling of kind of like doing something like this, starting off with something that's going to make your mind move, not get into the same habits that you get into. I do find that a lot of times habit is one of the big problems that we have. And I do find that in many cases, I do find myself, especially with my sketchbooks, my notebooks, whatever you want to call them, I do find that what I do is I get into a habit of drawing the same little doodles and the same little characters. Oh, I like drawing that character. I'll draw that. Well, stop doing that, you know. You've got to kind of get into this feeling that we're trying to get away from something. And the more that you kind of start in a different way, you know, when you're doing your sketches and you're doing your doodles and you're doing whatever, then if it looks like something on the page before, change it. Okay? Get into this kind of freedom of drawing. Get into this way that you're kind of drawing something that you haven't done before. Right, that pen's starting to feel a little bit wobbly. I'm going to change that over. What have I got? You'll do. Again, don't get too fussy about your nibs and stuff like that. It can kind of get you feeling that the pen is the problem, or learn to draw with whatever pen or pencil or whatever you just grab, whatever's on the table when you're sitting there. You want to draw something and you're sitting and then you're looking at just grab that pen, whatever it is. Is it a biro? Is it a dip pen? Is it a fountain pen? Whatever it is, just take that. And I've no idea quite what I've started drawing here. And that's part of the fun. Part of the fun is just kind of finding your own way, you know. But to this point of kind of artist block, okay, if you are struggling and you are finding that you really can't get anywhere with it, then the best thing to do is to sit, get out an old sketchbook. Even these type of things here that I was showing you the other day. Get one of these little lined pads. They cost like £1 or £2 or something. And start just scribbling in it. Scribbling shapes. And what you will find is that within those shapes you'll start to see little things that you like. And start with little things. If you see a little scribble and you think, I like that. I don't know why I like it, but I like it. Then that's the start. That's the beginning. And the more you scribble, the more you'll want to scribble. And I think the more that you kind of explore those scribbles and those kind of doodles, the more that you will start to enjoy that childish process of drawing. And the childish process is something that will get you into a thoughtful way of working. And that thoughtful way of working is exactly what you need. For example, now I've done some kind of, it looks a little bit like a horse's head almost. And I've got a very wide open mouth. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. I'm really tempted to do some kind of horns on it. But I've done this big kind of, I almost kind of feel like it's a ruff or a, just give him some teeth. But by doing this doodling, and I have talked before about this kind of doodling, as in the Funky Doodlers, and it's about process. Do I have any scribbles on here? What were we doing? There you go. I was talking about doing scribbles and doodles and stuff on that page. Talking about shapes and finding fun shapes and fun things that are different. Using different pens is another thing. If you get too used to the same habits. Again, one of the reasons why I don't use the same pen. I've got like 30 different pens there and I just grab whatever one I want. And it's the same when it comes down to the brushes. There's about another 30 brushes there. And I just grab whichever one my brain likes on that time. And that again just kind of relaxes the whole monotony of it, the whole kind of repeating process of it. And that in itself will start to break off that. And if it doesn't, then write something. Maybe write a short story. Maybe write a story about a three-legged rabbit and just try and write some kind of silly story. And it'll just relax your mind into a state that you can become creative. And if you're fighting that, then what will only happen is that you will get to a point where you get angry with yourself and you don't want to draw. And that's where we don't want to get. That's what we don't want to happen. Because all it does is it will make you frustrated. And frustration is really the devil, really. Start getting frustrated with what you're doing and you will start to get to a point that you just don't want to do it. You won't want to draw and you'll put the pen down. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to reverse that. We're trying to get to a point where you want to keep the pen in your hand, even if it's little scribbles and doodles. Let's just check my things are moving. I do have this terrible habit of drawing things that cameras don't pick up, and that is very frustrating, I must say. And here I've kind of got like an angry horse head almost, although I didn't really want to draw a horse because I drew a horse the other day. I drew the retired racehorse. Did you see the retired racehorse? I did enjoy that one. That was a fun drawing. I was trying to get into some kind of human type of pose. Somebody had asked me about human poses and I drew a human horse, a human pose, but I did it in a kind of a horse's character. Okay, well that bottom lip kind of makes it look a little bit more kind of monster-like, doesn't it? pointed tongue. I'll change it up a little bit. As far as I know, horses don't have pointed tongues. There we are. So there you got instantly you got a different character, a different approach. And it's a very common thing that I do. You know, if I need to illustrate a character, maybe it's for a book, and the character is described in a certain way, I will draw those elements, but I will draw them in different proportions. I'll do it maybe as a small hat, then a big hat, and then small horns and a big horns, and as you go on, you know. And what it does is it kind of gets to a point where you start to see a pattern of what I would say the fun shapes. You start to get to a point where you're drawing something that you think, I like that. I like his fat belly. I like his tall hat. And you start to put these elements together. And you can find that very, very easily from doing your sketches. Excuse me, I've got something in my eye. Alright, I've kind of got a... Just trying to find his middle. And again, changing proportions. If you see that your character is looking too kind of normal, then give him some kind of proportions. Maybe give him very, very large, thick, short arms like this. And the fact that they're short and they are thick will give you something. Let's get my brush back. Will give you something to kind of change up the format of your drawing, change the shape of it, change the weight of the line. Well, all these things will help. And don't be too shy about it. Don't be afraid to kind of grab a paintbrush and throw it down and just... Because you will find that a lot of this kind of exploring your drawing will get to a point that it will actually make the drawing. See, I'm already starting to think that maybe that's a kilt of some sort. You know, that maybe he's some kind of lizard. Maybe that's kind of like a kind of horse head lizard man creature thing, you know? And as a sketch, as a drawing, as a piece of fun, it's a delight. Because this way there is no rules. Obviously when you're doing an illustration for a book, you need to be a little bit more careful with the characters. Obviously you would have to be drawing these characters hundreds of times if you did it in a certain formatted book. Sometimes when I do think up a character for a book, I do draw the character in many ways, just to get that simple thing into my mind of how this character would be. For example, if this character was to turn and look at us, how would his head look? How would his body be? Would it be good if he was running? In the story he has to do some battle with somebody. Could he be a battle kind of character? Is he too short? Is he too fat? Should I make him taller? Should I make him longer? Should I make his arms longer? Should I give him wings? You know, all these little things. And all these decisions that you make will be in a sketch form. Because the more you're kind of sketching out this character, the more you will find out what type of character he's going to be. And it's a beautiful way to get your drawings. What I like to say is kind of like formatted. You're kind of formatting this character of what he will be and what he can do. And sometimes I've done it, you know, I've kind of fallen in love with a character that I've drawn, and I've started to illustrate the book, and then, you know, by page 5 I'm kind of thinking, well, this character cannot pick up an elephant and carry it across a bridge. And then you've got to go all the way back and then start reworking. So best is to kind of sketch it out and see what type of problems you're going to have with your character. And again, back to this thing of block, artist block. I don't think you can really have a block unless if you're kind of relaxing your mind down and sketching. Because sketching's not important. So you could say, well, maybe my character has got a kilt. Okay, let's put a kilt on it. A nice Scottish kilt. We'll give him some kind of demon sporran. And by having this kind of 4-year-old's playing type feeling about your drawing, gives you a lot of freedom. And by having that freedom, it does release you from all this stress and worry and the pressures that you put on yourself, you know. Ease off on it. Get back into that brush again. Lovely. And again, don't be too afraid of the weight of your line. Sometimes the weight of your line can help a drawing, can add a little bit more kind of character to it. And also it defines the lines better, you know. If you're drawing things too small sometimes, you can't really see the defining line between his body and his kilt, for example. So if you can imagine his other hand here, he's holding maybe like a spear or something. You can add these little elements to it just to kind of give this weight of him being a warrior, you know. And as you see there, as I put my pen on, the line became thick, that one, but I didn't want it. So also I wipe it on my fingers just as a simple way, because I don't want to put everything down and go and get a cloth to mop things up. So defining your line, like here I'm doing the pattern on the kilt, and I'm doing it very thin, fine lines. So as you can see, from the outline of the kilt to the detail inside the kilt, I've done it in a very, very different style. And again, if you're sketching, you could sketch out and say if you wanted him to have a kind of a kilt or shorts, or you wanted him to have full metal kind of armored trousers, or you wanted him to be dressed more with armor. You could change that kind of arm part there into a big kind of like an arm plate type of thing, you know. Where you kind of got more kind of armor on his shoulders and armors on his elbows and stuff like that, which would have been really, really quite fun to draw up. So again, getting back to your problem with your artist's block, as the question was aimed at, it really is about taking the pressure off your own mind. It really is about sitting down, make yourself a nice hot chocolate or something, you know, and just doodle, just scribble around in your notepad, and ease the pressure off this idea that you've got to illustrate this amazing character. Because sometimes it's the simplest ideas sometimes that come across the most beautiful. If you think about characters like Harry Potter, for example, it's just a simple boy with little round glasses, you know. It's like, it wasn't anything major. It's like, but then with a few little touches, obviously with the addition of his wand and his kind of cape, and so I do think that sometimes simplifying down your character can be the winning deal. And the example for that is something like Harry Potter. In the same way that, like, you know, I worked on Dennis the Menace and stuff like that, and it's the same simple boy with a different haircut, you know. So sometimes you don't need to go too extreme. I mean, you think of Horrid Henry, for example. It's like his jumper is stripy, in the same way that Dennis the Menace and Horrid Henry both have stripy jumper. They both have shaggy hair. You know, it's like there's a lot of similarities in there. Obviously, once you see the color completely changes. The red and black of Dennis the Menace and such. And then again, you've got his little Nasher dog, who's also black and kind of scruffy. And then we've got some kind of warriors. See, we've kind of drawn ourselves some kind of kilted warrior. More fun sketch. And that could be really, you could see that in some kind of like a comic or something, you know. And again, if you put a nice red, killed red with green touches in there, it would be beautiful. So that is today's drawing. It was quite a quick one today. So, so you'll have extra time to go and play today. The sun is out today, although this week has planned for rain. I'm trying to get Mr. Miro out and get as much sunshine as possible. Once the sun comes out, he doesn't like to be inside the house too long. He likes to be out running, playing with his friends. And there we have a rather lovely character. I'm really, really pleased with that, actually. I think it's come up really quite beautiful. This kind of warrior warrior, kind of lizard. In fact, we could probably even give him a little tail just to finish off that kind of lizard theme there. Just in case somebody says, doesn't a lizard have a tail? He's some kind of like a Celtic warrior of some sort. I'm really quite pleased with that. So if you have been one of the people that have been donating to the channel, I do really appreciate it. You do keep the channel alive, you keep it ticking along, and it is greatly appreciated. So thank you for all those people. Thank you very, very, very much. It keeps the drawings coming, keeps the ink flowing. And that, I'm just going to frame it now. And it's always, I do love when they're framed. I don't know, it just seems to add a whole kind of string of beauty to it. And I do use a slightly different ink for the framing because it's very big splash there. Because I use so much of the ink, I can't really use the expensive stuff for the framing because I use so much of it. So I have to get to this cheaper ink. And there we have a really fantastically beautiful drawing for you today. The Celtic lizard, the Celtic warrior, whatever your favorite title will be. And I'm really pleased with that. So thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching the drawing, and I'd love to get some comments. Come on, keep those comments coming. I do appreciate your comments. I do love your comments. I do sit there at night and go through your comments with Mr. Miro. Me and Mr. Miro go through and reply to everybody's comments, so I do appreciate. So I will see you again very, very soon for another drawing. I hope you enjoyed this one. Tell me what you think. See you soon. Bye-bye.